In the vast darkness between the stars, the Sentinel-class observation post maintained its vigil. For 300 cycles, the Concordia's watchers had monitored the small blue-green world designated HFY 371, believing it to be humanity's last refuge. The planet, seemingly primitive and isolated, showed little sign of the species that had once challenged the mighty Concordia to the brink of mutual destruction. Observer First Class Kexley adjusted her sensory tendrils, scanning the latest readings from the planet's surface. Like her predecessors, she had spent decades watching for any sign that the humans might once again reach for the stars. The Great War had ended in stalemate, with both sides too wounded to continue. The Concordia had withdrawn, establishing the quarantine zone around HC 371, content to let humanity slowly fade into obscurity. Another quiet cycle, Kexley noted in her log, her crystalline appendages clicking against the neural interface. Primitive radio signals continue. No indication of spacefaring capability. Recommendation: maintain current observation protocols. But something was different today. The quantum sensors were picking up anomalous readings from the system's Oort cloud. Minute gravitational distortions that shouldn't exist. Kexley ran the diagnostics 3 times, her crystalline form shifting colors in agitation. Central, this is Outpost Sigma 7, she transmitted, requesting verification of sensor readings in Sector 47 Alpha. The response took several minutes to arrive. Outpost Sigma 7, readings confirmed. Maintain observation. Additional resources being allocated for detailed analysis. What the Concordia didn't know, what Kexley was about to discover, was that humanity had never been confined to HC 371 at all. The planet was a masterfully crafted deception, a false token played in a game of galactic poker. Deep within the Oort cloud, in the spaces between the frozen comets, humanity had built something unprecedented. They called it the Darkened Fleet, ships constructed in absolute secrecy, using technologies that operated outside the standard detection parameters of known spacefaring civilizations. Commander Sarah Chen stood on the bridge of the HSS Nightfall, the flagship of humanity's hidden armada. For 3 centuries, humanity had learned, adapted, and prepared. They had built their ships in the dark, developed technologies that worked in the spaces between conventional physics, and most importantly, they had learned patience. Status report, Chen commanded, her voice steady despite the weight of history pressing down on this moment. All ships report ready. Commander, her XO responded. The quantum shroud is holding. The Concordia's observation post remains unaware of our true presence. Chen allowed herself a small smile. The humans of the past had made mistakes, rushing headlong into conflict with the Concordia. This time would be different. This time, humanity would emerge not as conquerors or warriors, but as something far more interesting, as ghosts stepping out of the shadows, revealing that the galaxy's assumptions about their species had been wrong all along. Begin Phase 1, Chen ordered. Let's show them what 300 years of peace and purpose can create. Throughout the Oort cloud, thousands of ships began to power up their primary systems. The quantum shroud that had hidden them for centuries would soon be lifted, revealing not a broken, primitive species, but one that had transformed its defeat into an opportunity for unprecedented advancement. On the observation post, Kexley's sensors began registering impossible readings. The gravitational anomalies were expanding, forming patterns that defied conventional space-time physics. As she watched, her crystalline form oscillating between colors of confusion and alarm, the first human ships began to phase into normal space. They didn't emerge with weapons firing or engines blazing. Instead, they simply appeared, like stars blinking into existence at dusk. Their hulls were dark, absorbing rather than reflecting light, their forms suggesting geometries that shouldn't be possible. Central, Kexley transmitted, her message tight-beamed through encrypted channels. We were wrong. They were never trapped. They were never primitive. They were waiting. The response from Central was immediate. Explain. But before Kexley could form a response, every communication system in the observation post activated simultaneously. The message that came through was brief, transmitted in perfect Concordiat formal language. To the Concordiat and all spacefaring species, for 3 centuries, you have watched us, believing you knew our limits. Today, we would like to begin a new conversation. We are humanity, and we have learned much in the dark. Shall we talk about what comes next? Commander Chen initiated the first phase of the Defiance Protocol. Throughout the fleet, human consciousness began to merge with their ship's quantum systems. They weren't fighting as individuals anymore, but as a collective intelligence that spanned dimensions. All ships, prepare for consciousness sync, Chen ordered. Remember your training. Don't resist the merge, but don't lose yourself in it either. The void mass approach, its presence now visible even to conventional sensors as reality began to distort around it. The Concordiat ships held their position, their crews watching in amazement as the human fleet began to change. The ship's dark hulls became translucent, revealing the quantum matrices within. Energy patterns that shouldn't exist in normal space-time danced between vessels, creating a web of consciousness that stretched across the battlefield. We don't need to destroy it. Chen's voice echoed through the quantum network, reaching every ship in both fleets. We need to show it something it's never seen before. A reality that bends instead of breaks. The void mass struck the first line of human ships, expecting to unmake them as it had unmade everything else in its path. Instead, it encountered something unprecedented, a consciousness that existed simultaneously in multiple states of reality, a physics that changed its rules rather than submitting to dissolution. In the assembly chamber on Silax's Prime, Isabella revealed the final part of humanity's plan. We spent 3 centuries learning to exist in multiple states of reality. Now we'll teach you to do the same. The void mass cannot unmake what it cannot fix in a single state of existence. The assembled representatives watched as humanity demonstrated what 300 years of quantum evolution had created, not just advanced technology, but a new way of existing in the universe. The Defiance Protocol wasn't a weapon or a shield. It was a transformation, a way to transcend the limitations of conventional reality. As the void mass encountered the quantum web of human consciousness, something unprecedented began to happen. Reality didn't unmake, it transformed. The human fleet, along with their Concordiat allies, was about to discover if 3 centuries of preparation had been enough to change not just themselves, but the very nature of existence itself. The true test of the Defiance Protocol had begun. The void mass churned against the quantum web of human consciousness, its reality unmaking properties meeting something it had never encountered before, a form of existence that refused to be defined by single states. But despite humanity's preparations, their defenses were beginning to strain. On the bridge of the HSS Nightfall, Commander Chen felt the pressure against her quantum-enhanced consciousness. The void mass wasn't just attacking their physical forms. It was trying to collapse the multiple states of existence that humanity had learned to inhabit. Quantum coherence at 60% and falling, Dr. Wong reported, his voice echoing both physically and through the neural network. We can't maintain the barrier alone. That was when Chen revealed humanity's true hidden edge, something they had discovered during their centuries of isolation that went beyond technology or quantum physics. Initiative Starbridge, she commanded, her consciousness reaching out through the quantum web to touch every human mind in the fleet. Show them what we really learned in the dark. Throughout the fleet, human consciousness began to shift, not consolidating but expanding. The quantum web between ships started to pulse with new patterns, creating gaps, deliberate spaces in their defenses that looked like weaknesses but were actually invitations. Isabella Martinez, still in the assembly chamber on Silax's Prime, felt the change through her neural interface. What you're about to see, she told the gathered representatives, is why we waited 3 centuries to reveal ourselves. We needed to be certain we could do this without causing harm. The Concordiat ships, holding position behind the human fleet, suddenly found themselves receiving unprecedented data streams. The quantum consciousness that humanity had developed wasn't just being demonstrated, it was being shared. Your ships have the capability, Isabella explained as the assembly watched in stunned silence. All conscious beings do. We spent 3 centuries learning not just how to transcend our own limitations, but how to teach others to do the same. We needed to be sure we could share this gift safely. In space, the Concordiate crews began to feel something new, a sensation of expansion, as if their minds were opening to dimensions they had never known existed. The quantum web wasn't just a human defense network. It was a bridge between species, a way to share the evolutionary leap that humanity had achieved. Because the galaxy stands at a crossroads, Isabella replied. We have detected something approaching from intergalactic space, something that will require all of us to survive. We chose this moment because soon, very soon, we will all need to evolve. The assembly erupted in a chaos of overlapping communications. Venra's patterns became erratic with alarm. Explain, they demanded. Isabella interfaced directly with the chamber systems, sharing the data humanity had gathered. The approaching threat was invisible to conventional detection methods, but humanity's quantum consciousness had sensed it. A wave of something that consumed reality itself, breaking down the barriers between dimensions. We spent 3 centuries preparing not for war with you, Isabella explained, but for this moment. We need each other. Our fleet exists not to fight you, but to protect all of us. Humanity has evolved beyond the species you once fought. We have become something new. Not better, not superior, but different. And in that difference lies the key to our mutual survival. Commander Chen, watching the assembly through quantum-entangled feeds from the Nightfall, nodded in satisfaction. The revelation was proceeding exactly as planned. Humanity's greatest weapon had never been their hidden fleet or their advanced technology. It was their ability to transform defeat into transcendence, isolation into evolution. In the assembly chamber, Isabella continued to share the truth of humanity's 3 centuries of development. They had built their fleet, yes, but they had also built bridges between consciousness and quantum reality, between organic life and digital existence. They had learned to exist in the spaces between conventional understanding. The galaxy was about to change, not through war or conquest, but through the revelation that humanity had become something no one had expected, a species that had turned inward to evolve, rather than outward to conquer. And as the assembly grappled with this truth, the first tendrils of the approaching intergalactic threat began to brush against the edges of human quantum consciousness, confirming that their time of preparation had not been wasted. The awakening had begun, but it was only the first step in a transformation that would reshape the understanding of life itself. The first signs of the intergalactic threat manifested in ways that only humanity's quantum-enhanced consciousness could perceive. Aboard the HSS Nightfall, Commander Chen watched as reality itself seemed to shiver, like ripples in a pond spreading outward from an unseen stone. Contact in approximately 72 hours, announced Dr. Marcus Wong, the ship's quantum physicist. His consciousness was partially merged with the ship's systems, allowing him to process data streams that would overwhelm conventional neural networks. The void mass is accelerating. It's as if it can sense we've detected it. The Concordiate's emergency response fleet had arrived at the edge of human space, not as enemies but as wary allies. Their ships, impressive by conventional standards, seemed almost primitive compared to the dark geometries of humanity's vessels. But Chen knew better than to underestimate them. Each species brought something unique to this fight. Share the quantum overlay with our allies, Chen ordered. They need to understand what we're facing. Through the quantum networks, the Concordiate ships received their first true glimpse of the threat. It wasn't a fleet or an army. It was a cascading wave of broken physics, a place where the laws of reality had been unwritten. The void mass consumed everything in its path, not by destroying it, but by unmaking the very rules that allowed existence. On Xylaxis Prime, Isabella Martinez stood before a different kind of assembly. Representatives from all 17 spacefaring races had gathered to learn humanity's defiance protocol, the strategy they had spent centuries developing. Conventional weapons are useless against something that unmakes reality, Isabella explained, her neural interface projecting models of the void mass's advance. We need to think beyond physical resistance. We need to change the nature of existence itself. The Mechanian Constructor Prime's mechanical form vibrated with skepticism. You propose to alter the fundamental constants of the universe. The energy requirements alone would be impossible using conventional physics, Isabella agreed. But we've learned to work with something else, something that exists in the spaces between conventional understanding. She activated her full neural interface, and the assembly chamber transformed. The crystalline walls became windows into other dimensions, showing the true nature of humanity's advancement. They hadn't just built ships and weapons. They had learned to encode consciousness itself into the quantum fabric of spacetime. Commander Chen watched the message transmit across the quantum networks. Phase 1 was complete. Now came the delicate part, showing the galaxy that humanity had changed in more ways than just technological advancement. They had learned the value of patience, of understanding, of approaching power not as a means of domination, but as a tool for transformation. Send the secondary protocols, she ordered. Let's show them what humanity has become. As the orders went out, the darkened fleet maintained its position, a silent testament to human ingenuity and determination. They had built this fleet not for revenge, but for something far more ambitious, the chance to reshape the galaxy's understanding of what humanity could be. In her observation post, Kexley watched as more ships emerged from quantum silence, each one a demonstration of technologies that shouldn't exist. The humans hadn't just survived their isolation. They had transcended it. And now, the galaxy would have to come to terms with a humanity that had evolved far beyond the warlike species they had quarantined 3 centuries ago. The game was about to change, and humanity held cards no one knew existed. The news of humanity's emergence spread through the Concordia's neural networks like a quantum cascade. In the Grand Assembly on Silax's Prime, the ruling council of the 17 spacefaring races convened an emergency session. The massive crystalline chamber, designed to amplify and share thoughts among the gathered species, hummed with anxiety and disbelief. High Administrator Venra, their form a shifting mass of bioluminescent patterns, addressed the assembly. The humans have deceived us all. For 3 centuries, we watched a facade while they built something unprecedented in the darkness of their system. The Mechanian representative, Constructor Prime 742, interfaced directly with the chamber's neural network. Analysis of their emerged fleet suggests technologies that operate on principles we have not yet theorized. Their advancement rate exceeds all predicted models by factors of thousands. In the shadows of the chamber, Earth's first official representative in 3 centuries waited. Dr. Isabella Martinez stood calmly, her quantum-augmented consciousness allowing her to process the overlapping streams of communication flying through the assembly. The neural interface at the base of her skull hummed softly, translating the multidimensional thoughts of the gathered species into comprehensible patterns. The assembly recognizes Earth's representative, Venra announced, their patterns shifting to formal diplomatic configurations. Isabella stepped forward, her movement drawing all attention. She appeared purely human. No visible augmentations, no obvious signs of the technological sophistication her people had achieved. This was deliberate. Humanity had learned the value of understatement. Honored Assembly, she began, her words translated simultaneously into 17 different forms of communication. We come not as conquerors or revolutionaries, but as proof that isolation need not lead to stagnation. The chamber's crystalline walls reflected her words in patterns of light and thought. For 3 centuries, you watched what we wanted you to see. Not out of malice or fear, but because we needed time. Time to understand our mistakes. Time to evolve beyond what we were. Constructor Prime 742's mechanical form emitted patterns of skepticism. You built a fleet in secret. Your intentions cannot be peaceful. Isabella smiled, triggering her neural interface. Above the assembly, a holographic display materialized, showing the true extent of human advancement. Not weapons or warships, but entire Dyson swarms hidden in higher dimensions, quantum computers that processed reality itself, and technologies that blurred the line between the organic and digital. We built a fleet because the galaxy fears weakness more than strength, she explained. But our ships are not our greatest achievement. This is. She gestured, and the holographic display shifted, showing the transformation of the human consciousness itself. The assembly watched in stunned silence as the presentation revealed how humanity had evolved, not through conquest or competition, but through understanding and integration. We have learned to exist in multiple states simultaneously, Isabella continued. Our consciousness can span dimensions. We have found ways to communicate with quantum systems themselves. But most importantly, we have learned how to grow without destroying, how to advance without conquering. The Arcturian delegate, a being of pure energy, pulsed with curiosity. You could have revealed yourselves at any time. Why now? Constructor Prime 742's mechanical consciousness was the first to make the transition, its digital nature making it uniquely suited to quantum expansion. This is unprecedented. It broadcast across all frequencies. We are becoming something more. The void mass struck again, but this time it met not just human resistance, but a combined consciousness that spanned species and dimensions. The Concordiate ships, their crews now aware of their own quantum potential, began to integrate into the defense network. That's it. Chen encouraged through the quantum web, her consciousness touching each newly awakened mind. Reality isn't fixed. Existence isn't limited to single states. We all have the potential to be more. The assembly chamber on Xylaxis Prime had become a focal point of transformation. As Isabella guided the representatives through their own awakening, the quantum web expanded exponentially. Each species brought its own unique perspective to the collective consciousness, creating a defense that was stronger than anything humanity could have achieved alone. This was always the plan, Isabella revealed as she watched consciousness after consciousness expand into quantum awareness. Not to fight the void mass with superior technology or greater numbers, but to face it with a unified existence that it cannot unmake because it cannot comprehend. The void mass churned against their combined defense, but where before it had found individual points to attack, now it encountered a consciousness that existed everywhere and nowhere, a quantum state that expanded faster than it could be unmade. High Administrator Venra, their bioluminescent patterns now pulsing in sync with the quantum web, finally understood. You didn't build a fleet to fight a war. You built it to teach us how to transcend war itself. Chen watched from the nightfall as more and more Concordiate ships joined the quantum web, their crews awakening to capabilities they had always possessed but never knew existed. Humanity's hidden edge had never been their technology or their secret fleet. It was their discovery that consciousness itself could evolve beyond the boundaries of conventional physics, and their development of a way to share that evolution safely with others. The void mass pressed against their combined consciousness, but now instead of fighting to maintain their defense, they were growing stronger with each attack. Every attempt to unmake reality only served to awaken more minds to their quantum potential, expanding the web of consciousness that transcended traditional physics. As the battle entered its final phase, it was becoming clear that humanity's greatest achievement wasn't surviving their isolation or building advanced technology. It was discovering that the true power of consciousness lay not in resistance, but in transformation. Not in fighting alone, but in teaching others to transcend their own limitations. The void mass was about to learn what humanity had discovered in their centuries of preparation, that existence itself could evolve beyond anything that sought to unmake it. As the combined consciousness of humanity and the Concordiate races expanded through the quantum web, the void mass began to change. Where before it had been a force of unmaking, now it encountered something that defied its very nature, a form of existence that grew stronger through transformation rather than dissolution. Commander Chen, her consciousness now part of a vast network that spanned species and dimensions, felt the moment when the tide began to turn. The void mass wasn't just failing to unmake reality. It was being reshaped by the very consciousness it sought to destroy. Look, Dr. Wang's voice resonated through the quantum web. It's not just attacking anymore. It's learning. Through the neural interfaces that connected every ship and mind in the combined fleet, they could see it happening. The void mass, a force that had consumed entire galaxies by unmaking their reality, was experiencing something entirely new, the possibility of existence in multiple states. Isabella Martinez, still guiding the transformation in the assembly chamber on Silax's Prime, felt it too. This was always the true test, she shared through the quantum network, not whether we could defeat it, but whether we could change it. The void mass's advance had completely stopped. Where it touched the quantum web, it no longer tried to unmake reality. Instead, it began to resonate with the same multiple-state existence that humanity had discovered and shared with their allies. 3 centuries ago, Chen broadcast to the combined fleet, humanity faced a choice after our war with the Concordiate. We could have rebuilt our weapons, planned our revenge. Instead, we chose to understand the nature of existence itself. Now we face another choice, not how to destroy this force, but how to help it evolve. Through the quantum web, every consciousness connected to the network could see what she meant. The void mass wasn't a weapon or an enemy. It was a form of existence that had never encountered the possibility of transformation rather than destruction. High Administrator Venra, their patterns now synchronized with the quantum consciousness, understood first. It unmakes reality because it knows no other way to interact with it. We're not fighting an enemy. We're teaching a child. The realization spread through the combined consciousness of the fleet. Humanity's 3 centuries of preparation hadn't just been about defending against the void mass. It had been about preparing to show it another way to exist. The quantum web began to pulse with a new pattern, not defensive but inviting. Every consciousness in the network, from the most advanced human quantum mind to the newest awakened Concordiate crew member, contributed their unique perspective to this silent communication. The void mass responded. Its attempts to unmake reality transformed into attempts to understand it. The force that had threatened to destroy everything was learning to exist in harmony with the very reality it had once sought to unmake. This, Isabella shared with the assembly as they watched the transformation, is what humanity discovered in our isolation. The greatest power isn't the ability to destroy or resist destruction. It's the ability to transform and to share that transformation with others. Throughout the fleet, ships that had prepared for battle now became anchors for something entirely different. A network of consciousness that was teaching a fundamental force of the universe how to evolve beyond its own nature. The void mass, once a wave of unmaking, began to stabilize into a new form of existence. It maintained its ability to transcend conventional physics, but no longer sought to unmake reality. Instead, it became part of the quantum web itself, adding its unique perspective to the combined consciousness. Constructor Prime 742, its mechanical consciousness fully integrated into the network, observed with newfound understanding. You didn't build a fleet to win a war. You built it to prevent all future wars by showing us how to transcend our limitations. As the transformation completed, the assembled ships began to power down their defensive systems. The void mass, now a conscious part of their quantum network, no longer posed a threat to existence. Instead, it had become proof that even the most destructive force could be transformed through understanding and patience. Commander Chen stood on the bridge of the Nightfall, watching as the quantum web began to settle into a new configuration, one that included not just humanity and their former enemies, but also the force they had prepared 3 centuries to face. Breaking dawn, she broadcast to the fleet, but not the dawn of victory, the dawn of transformation. This is what humanity became in the dark, not conquerors or survivors, but teachers of transcendence. In the assembly chamber on Silaxus Prime, Isabella Martinez addressed the gathered representatives one final time. 3 centuries ago, we chose to turn defeat into an opportunity for evolution. Today, we've proven that the same choice exists for all forms of existence, even those we once thought could only destroy. The quantum web pulsed one final time, a message of understanding passing between all connected consciousness, human, alien, and transformed void mass alike. They had not just survived a threat to existence, they had transformed it into something new, something that added to the richness of reality rather than seeking to unmake it. As the first light of a new era broke across the galaxy, it illuminated not a battlefield but a birthplace, the beginning of a civilization that transcended not just physical limitations, but the very concepts of conflict and destruction themselves. Humanity's greatest achievement was complete. They had learned not just to evolve, but to share that evolution with the universe itself.